Okay, so last time we were talking about conceptual and non-conceptual minds. So non-conceptual minds are direct perceivers, which are your sense consciousnesses. Your sense consciousnesses, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, taste, are all direct perceivers. The mental consciousness is sometimes a direct perceiver, let's say in cases like yogic direct perception or clairvoyance, but it's very often a conceptual consciousness, whereas your senses can never be conceptual. Okay, so both types of awarenesses have their advantages and disadvantages. With your sense, with any kind of direct perception, we know the object that's present, and we know it in a very broad way. Whatever is there is appearing to us. In a conceptual consciousness, the object that we're apprehending isn't necessarily present. It can exist in the past or in the future in another place, and that object is appearing to us via a conceptual appearance, okay? And that conceptual appearance is formed by selecting certain details. You aren't getting the whole picture like you are with your eyes when it's all appearing to you, but the minds have select details and then putting them together to form this conceptual appearance. So the conceptual appearance can mix objects at different times, in different places, with different characteristics, So for example, we see Hana today and we saw Hana yesterday, and we have an image of Hana in our mind that's a mixture of the person we saw yesterday, the person we saw today, which are two different people, Okay, we mix things in different places. We saw the pot in the kitchen yesterday, and we saw the pot in the kitchen, and then we saw it on the table. But when we think about the pot, we're conflating these into one image of the pot. Okay, and then different things. We mix properties. So, for example, we may see a fir tree and a pine tree and an apple tree, but when we say the word tree, we've taken properties from all of these three and mixed them, and we have a conceptual image of a tree that has these shared properties. Okay, so the advantage with the conceptual minds is that it enables us to see things that aren't present right now, and it enables us to think about things. Okay, so it enables us to plan, to make relationships between different objects, to form ideas. Conceptual minds are involved with language, so they're involved when we're talking, when we listen to the Dharma, when we think about the Dharma. These are all conceptual minds, okay? So it's not that conceptual minds are bad. They're actually good, and some of them are good, and we need to use them. What the kind of conceptual minds that are problems are the distracting ones, like, when we start thinking about, well, what was the pot doing in the kitchen and then on the table, and who put it there, and blah, 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 and why is the tree here, and people aren't respecting trees, and we need more government policies about trees, and you're supposed to be meditating on something else, Or, the Hana's appearing in your meditation, and why is she here, and what's she doing, and what kind of work she's doing, and you're supposed to be meditating on refuge, So these are the kind of conceptual minds that are distractions that we want to eliminate. But a lot of our Lamrim studies and our initial level of reflection on these things are done through conception. Okay. So when you're going around and doing things, be aware of when you're having a non-conceptual mind and when you're having a conceptual mind. And it's very interesting to watch how so often, as soon as there's any kind of non-conceptual thing, we'll remember something from the past that reminds us of this and that, and it puts it right on it, And so it's very interesting to watch this, because we think that we're seeing things as they are, as an objective reality, but in fact, there's maybe one moment or a few moments of direct perception, and then we're putting all of our thoughts about it from the past and experience with the past, and it's all getting put on this one, little direct perception. And so it becomes very difficult for us often to see things freshly, because whatever we see is mixed with our past experience, mixed with our opinions. Yeah, and so this happens, so often. We see in community life, there's somebody says some word, or there's some look on somebody's face, and that's just a sense data, that's all. The color and shape of somebody's face, the sound of their voice. And then we go back in the past about when our mother spoke to us this way, our father, these people did this and that and the other thing, and it reminds us of this and that, and then boom, we're seeing all of that on this person, put on this person in front of us. And we think that all of that is there, out there, in that person, when all the sense data we received was the color and shape of their face and the sound of the voice. Okay? So do you see how we make ourselves very confused? Mixing up past associations with present objects with that kind of conceptual mind. So that's something we really want to be aware of in our practice and diminish. Whereas, when we're learning the Dharma and we hear a teaching and then we take that back and we think about it, and we think about it with reasoning and logic and, apply it to our experience, that kind of conceptualization is very helpful to us at the beginning stages of the path, so that we understand the teachings. Otherwise, there's no way to understand them. Yeah, because how do we learn the Dharma? We learn it through language and concepts. Yeah, so we hear the voice and see the person, but the real learning is through the concepts and language that we're hearing and getting involved in. Okay? So be aware as you go through the day. Yeah? When are you seeing things freshly, and when are you putting all sorts of stuff on it?
Is it the case that necessarily the second moment of a cognition becomes conceptual after the sense?
No, the second moment of a cognition doesn't necessarily become conceptual. I mean, I can look at the chair and my eye consciousness is still seeing, the chair, the color and shape of the chair, many moments of that. So that's no problem. That's all my eye consciousness. But when I start thinking about, gee, that chair's a little bit wide, and if we had narrower chairs, we could get more chairs along here and fit more people in, that's conceptual.
So then, is it, just trying to make it more clear, that the conceptual mind is necessarily like linguistic thought, not just a mental image?
No, it's both. It's linguistic thought and a mental image. When you do a visualization, that's your conceptual mind. Yeah? When we have memory is all conceptual mind. It's not direct perception because the object isn't there anymore. We're remembering it, so it's appearing to our mind as a conceptual appearance. Yeah? So we can have a conceptual appearance of a sight, but also of a sound and a smell and a taste and a tactile situation. And yeah. That's why sometimes it's translated as mental image, but image gives you more the feeling that it's a visual image, but it's not. We can have conceptual appearances of any of the other objects. Okay.